Good evening. My name is Thurman Greco, and the name of this program is Let's Live, and it's come to you from Woodstock, New York. And this evening I have a brand new show. I've never done this one before. I am writing a book about foot care, which is very interesting. I mean, it's not anything radical, it's not anything whatever, and it's probably the first book that I should have written. But instead, the first book I wrote was a healer's handbook, which was about wellness, spiritual wellness of the whole body. And it is now going into its third edition, which is highly expanded. It's probably doubled in size with a lot of new information. And it's called Wellness for All. But it is Healer's Handbook, Wellness for All. But this one is still available. If you'd like to have it, it's a very, very good basic spiritual wellness guide. And people tell me that they really like the size of this book because it's a book that they can have by their bedside and read it. They can take it with them on trips. It's a book that you have with you. It's a guide that you can take with you because it's not only good for your health, but the health of those around you. And of course, nowadays, with our planet in such stress, health is something that we're probably paying a lot of attention to that we didn't pay attention to before, because we didn't have to, but now we have to. And so I'm writing a new book, and it's called Happy Feet. And this book is a spiritual guide to good health for those with aching, burning, itching, cramped, painful, sore, stiff, swollen, tired feet. And truth be told, I think that this book is going to appeal to everyone because it does discuss the spirituality of your feet. Because our feet are extremely spiritual. They do take us from one point to the next. And they're kind of ignored by a lot of people, and a lot of people don't want to even pay attention to their feet. They don't like the way their feet look. They don't want anyone to see their feet. It's really a difficult situation for a person. And you know, when you think about it, I don't know anybody who is really happy with how their feet look. And frankly, I'm really happy with the way my feet look because my feet have looked terrible for decades. And one of the reasons that they've looked terrible for decades is that I have had some issues with the skin because I have a low thyroid. And when you have a low thyroid, it does impact on your feet. So, but now my feet are looking really, really good. I've gotten them into a healthy situation, and I'm very proud of that. So this is the beginning of this book, Happy Feet. And as an aside, I have a request. I don't know, some of you may know, some of you may be aware that I have a booth at the flea market in the summer. And it's primarily concerned with raising money and awareness of hunger and homelessness. And of course now we have homelessness and hunger like we have never had before in this country. So the booth has an added relevance. And the international symbol for homelessness and hunger is a key. So I am in the process, in my spare time, I swear I don't know how I found it, but I did find some spare time, making some very simple necklaces that focus on a key to raise awareness and interest in homelessness and hunger. So as a result, if you have, and I'm sure everyone has a drawer somewhere in their home, or maybe a hook somewhere on a wall that's not readily available right now, maybe in a pantry or behind a kitchen cabinet, in in a jar. You've got a bunch of keys that you don't even know what they go to anymore. And if you would be so kind as to share those keys with me, I would be greatly appreciative, because then I can make them into consciousness-raising jewelry and display them at the flea market next summer. So that's my request. I've never had a request like that at this show, but we shall see what happens. So back to the happy feet. When you are a reflexologist and you're going to write a book, you should write about feet, right? So I shouldn't be doing this after I've written a half a dozen books. Now I'm finally doing what I should do. One of the things that my book is going to talk about, it's going to talk about the different problems that we have with our feet. And of course there will be a chapter on foot reflexology, because foot reflexology is very important for the health of our feet as well as for the health of our body. You know, we talk a lot about in foot reflexology that if you have something wrong with if you feel something, if for example you feel pain in your bunion area, then we say that refers to something else. It does. 70% of the time it does, but 30% of the time you have a pain in the bunion area of your foot because you've got a health issue there. It doesn't transfer off into the rest of your body. So that's something that I'm going to be discussing in this book. And I'm going to be discussing, as I have in Healer's Handbook, different diseases and the spirituality of the disease. And the first one that I have talked about so far in this book is itchy feet. And of course, that's one of the things that so many people have itchy feet. And the reason they have itchy feet is that there are dozens of things that can cause itchy feet. And of course, itchy feet can also be a spiritual situation. It can be that you are itching to get away. You are trying to get out of the area. You are trying to go to a new place, either physically, spiritually, mentally, or emotionally. So your feet itch. But you can also have itchy feet because of various things that will cause your itchy feet. You can have an allergy. You can have athlete's foot. You can have dry skin. You can have a nutritional deficiency. You can have poison ivy. You can have poison oak. You can have poor circulation. You can have ringworm. And you can have a problem with your laundry detergent. You know, if you wear socks and you wash your clothes in a washing machine and you put in too much soap and the washing machine does not rinse the soap out, you can have itchy feet. So that's something that's something to think about. That's probably the easiest problem. Probably the most difficult problem, if you have itchy feet, is athlete's foot. And that's because a person can have athlete's foot for years. They can have athlete's foot for their entire life. And they can also think they have athlete's foot when they don't really have athlete's foot. When it's on your feet, it starts off between the toes. And the thing we have to realize is if you're going to have athlete's foot, you've got to have a little patch between your toes that's moist. So a lot of people think that they've got athlete's foot and they don't have this moist situation. If you don't have the moist situation, you don't have athlete's foot, you have something else. And you can also have poison ivy and poison oak. And that is such a terrible situation. Poison ivy it doesn't go away for a long time. You can end up spending huge amounts of money. And I know that because every year in the spring, I do get poison ivy. Well, this year I did not. And one of the reasons that I did not is because I have been taking allergy shots. to desensitize myself to poison ivy. Poison ivy is very, very uncomfortable. And to have it on your feet is just a terrible situation. You can also have, ringworm. And of course, ringworm is another situation. It's a fungus, and it's very difficult to get rid of. And I can remember that as a child, having ringworm, that was something that my mother she just felt like that was awful. And also, when you have itchy feet, you have to think about, what is the chakra connection? What is the connection to itchy feet? Well, it's a 7th chakra imbalance. And then you want to ask yourself, well, what kind of essential oils deal with itchy feet? Well, there's a bunch. There's frankincense, there's geranium, helichrysum, juniper, lavender, myrrh, peppermint, and tea tree. So there's enough of a choice here of essential oils that you probably have one at home, so you don't have to worry about it too much. Now, when you are going to work a foot, if you're going to offer a reflexology session to a person who has something that resembles the athlete's foot or ringworm or the ivies or whatever, the general feeling is to run. I mean, you just look at those feet and you say, I cannot catch this. I cannot catch this. Well, actually, it never has bothered me at all. If I run across a person who has some kind of skin issue on their feet and they have come to me to get their feet worked, I just pull out a pair of very light quality gloves and use the gloves. And not only that, I have learned that sometimes when you work reflexology on a person and you use gloves, you actually may feel more sensitive to all of the things that you do feel when you work people's feet. And at one point in my career, I had a pair of very thick rubber gloves that I used because I really could feel it was very, very sensitive. And so I used these gloves. So I wouldn't even worry about it. The other thing you can do is you can have a tea tree spray, or you can have some kind of an antifungal spray that you get at the health food store, and you can just spritz the feet. And some new reflexologists just spritz the feet of all of the people that they work. I do not. Most of the people, if not all of the people who come to me for foot reflexology, come to me with clean feet. They have clean feet, they have clean socks. It doesn't bother me at all. And I have had several regular clients who came to me after gardening so that they had dirt in their feet. And to me, that was wonderful. That was just a very clean, earthy experience that was not a problem at all. So when you work the reflexology systems and you're trying to deal with itching, you're going to work the endocrine system, which is extreme. This is spiritual. When you have itchy feet, you've got a spiritual situation, and the endocrine system, you definitely work with the spiritual body. The sense organ system, that's very true, because when you work the sense organ system, you definitely are again working the spirituality of the foot. And then you work the immune system, because the person may have something that is contagious. You work the digestive system. And you work the digestive system because when you work the digestive system, you're cleaning out the body. So this is very, very important. And then you work the nervous system. And when you work the nervous system and the endocrine system, That's a good combination. That really strengthens things. And then finally, you work the liver. Now, this is really important. I like to have the liver worked in all sessions of foot reflexology. But I really like to have the liver worked when a person has itchy feet. Because sometimes people will have itchy feet because their liver is toxic. So you need to work the liver. You need to try to clean it out. And then finally you work the solar plexus, which brings about deep peace. And of course, when you bring about deep peace, your preoccupation with your itchy feet is going to recede. Suggested healing systems are these. If things don't improve soon, a healthcare professional is a good option. And that's very true. If you are struggling with poison ivy, athlete's foot, ringworm, poor circulation, it's time to have somebody who is a professional in the field look at the situation. So it's time to get to the heart of the matter. So I would, first of all, go to a podiatrist. To rule out your fungus infections, to rule out other kinds of disease, a podiatrist is wonderful. And my second choice would be for a dermatologist. But a podiatrist is a wonderful, wonderful person to go to. And many people, I don't know, there are a lot of people who have not been to a podiatrist. And if you have not been to a podiatrist, you're missing something, because they do specialize in your feet, and they are very careful, caring people. I go in Kingston to Hudson Valley Foot Associates, and I adore my podiatrist, and I have a wonderful relationship with this person. So you need to include this person in keeping well. And also, you need to go to a podiatrist or a dermatologist, because if you decide you're going to stay away from a podiatrist or a dermatologist, you can blow a lot of money on soaps and creams and lotions and sprays, and none of them are right for your problem. So here you are spending all of this money on all of these products, and you're not getting to the heart of the matter. You're not curing the situation, and you've got all this stuff that's piling up in your house that's not going to work. And it'll sit around in a closet somewhere or a cabinet somewhere and collect dust and finally get thrown out. It's a waste of money. It's financially better to just go and find out what the diagnosis is first off and take care of it, especially if it's ringworm or athlete's foot or poison ivy, because poison ivy can be very expensive on the open market when you start buying remedies for poison ivy. So that's where I am on this one. I do want to speak for a moment about something that I call chilblains. And there aren't that many people out there that know what a chilblain is. But now, with COVID, when you run across a person who has blue toes and blue fingers, those are chilblains. And that's one of the symptoms for coronavirus. So if you see a person with blue toes, they need to go and get a coronavirus check. And has everybody out there gotten a coronavirus test? It's very simple now. You call up CVS, you go onto the computer, and if you don't have a computer, you can go to the library, and you can Google up CVS, and you give them your name and your address, and the computer will find out what is the store nearest you, and the CVS has the test. And they go through the drive-in window. So if you don't have a car, you have to go to the walk-in. You have to walk up to the drive-in window, which I've done before, because there was a time in my life that I lived in an area where banks were mostly drive-in. In the DC metro area, the banks were mostly drive-in, and I would park my car blocks away from my bank, so I would just walk over to the bank and stand in line and just walk through. So what you do is you get over to the drive-up window. They give you an appointment, and you go in. They want to know your name, and then they give you an appointment confirmation number and your birth date, and then they hand you a swab, which is long. It's like a Q-tip, but it has a long handle. And you give yourself the test, which is so much better than going to a place where someone else tests you for coronavirus. Because it's a nasal test, and when you start putting something in your nose and you do it yourself, you are much more careful and more sensitive of your feelings. And if someone else does it, they're not. And it doesn't take any more time to do it yourself than it does to have someone else do it. And so that is my tip of the day. And I advise people you can get these tests as often as you want. And if you think that you have coronavirus, you might as well not worry about it. Just go and get the test, and then you know within a very short time, which is really, really nice. So here we are back again at my very first book. One of the things that I am going to include in this book is I am going to include some exercises, because we have reached a point in our evolution, I guess you could say it's evolution. We have reached a point in our evolution where our feet are so closely encased in shoes, and our hands are doing so much keyboard work that our hands and feet are not they don't have the muscular health that they need, and they don't have the muscular dexterity. I run across people who cannot hold their fingers and thumbs out straight. As when they're relaxed, they're bending over like this. And this is coming from not only having to grasp for things, because life is such a challenge nowadays, but it's also coming from spending so much time on a keyboard. And it is true. I spend hours every day, and when I go to my job, I am on the computer, on the keyboard, for at least 3 hours out of every day. And we all are. Everyone is. They don't even ask you if you know how to use a keyboard anymore. You've got to know how to put your fingers to the keys. And not only that, then it's the phone. So if it isn't one thing, it's another. So, and it's the same thing with our feet. One of the first things that I noticed when I moved up to the Hudson Valley was that every year, as soon as Labor Day came and went, it was Labor Day, that's the September one. As soon as Labor Day came and went, everybody had all of their snow boots on. So if they had all of their snow boots on, your feet are stuck in these boots, and your toes are not able to move, your feet are not able to move, and it's very difficult for your feet. So you need, as a result of this, as a result of our lifestyles, you need to exercise both your hands and your feet. So here is what you do. You're going to first of all, we don't have it here, but you're going to pretend that your hand, and if you can, when you're home or wherever you are, put your hand at a wall. Just put the hand flat up against the wall to where all of the fingers are flat on the wall, if you can even do it. A lot of us cannot, because we spend so much time with our fingers like this that it's very difficult to do this. And what you want to do is you're going to have the palm of your hand against the wall, and then you're going to back your fingers up. And you're going to back your fingers up all the way so that you're moving your fingers away from the wall. But you're not going to have this other hand to move your fingers. You're going to have to do this on your own. You're going to have to move your thumb, you're going to have to move your little finger, you're going to have to move your ring finger, your middle finger, your pointer finger. You're going to have to move all these fingers. Now, when you do that, your hand is up against the wall, and you're trying to move your fingers away from the wall. And if it only takes a minute and a half or 2 minutes, but if you can do it, that's very important. And it is especially important if, when you hold your hand up straight, if you see some cuts not cuts, but they're little lines here along your foot, along your hand, that's a sign you really need to do this. So that's the first exercise that I have for everybody. And then, of course, in this book, Happy Feet, I'm going to give you some foot exercises. And, of course, probably no one will do it. But if your feet hurt, and if you have cramping feet, if you have painful feet, if you have sore feet, if you have stiff feet, if you have swollen feet, if you have tired feet, you need to do these exercises. And by the same token, now this isn't, the hand part is not going to be in the book, but the hand part is going to be just here on the TV program. This is just a bonus. But with your painful, cramped, burning, itching, stiff, swollen, tired hands, this is what you need to do. Also, if you can do your hands this way, if you can intertwine them and then push them out like that, that is a really, really, really important thing. And if you're going to do some reflexology on someone, these are some things that you can do. But now, with the feet, I'm not going to show you the feet, but I'm going to talk to you about the feet, and I'm going to just use my own fingers. You're going to have your feet flat on the floor and begin to move the toe up. So what you're going to do is you've got your foot on the floor, and you're going to try to raise just your big toe. That's the same thing as the thumb. You're just going to do the big toe. And then, as you go along, after you do that several times, then you're going to do the second toe. And you're going to raise it up and try to raise up the second toe and only do the second toe and not do any of the others. And then finally you're going to come to the third toe, and you're going to try to do that, and then you're going to try to raise just the third toe. And I can pretty well promise you that most of the people I know cannot do any of these exercises. And if you can just reach the point where you can lift your toes up and lift your second toe up and lift these toes up individually, you're going to go a long way toward having much healthier feet, and feet that are not nearly as painful and as swollen and as tired as they are now. And of course, the next thing you need to do is, a lot of times people wear shoes that do not fit right. And of course, people wear shoes that have been designed by sadists. I see women, and I see men wearing shoes too, that there is no way that shoe can be comfortable. And of course, I see them walking around, and I realize that they are uncomfortable. Every step they take is painful. This is ridiculous. So we can start with the shoe. And if the steps that you take are painful, and let's start with a shoe, you're going to start just every day or so when you think about it, try to get your toes to stick up a little bit one by one. But then once you get this shoe on, if you will try, if it's a lace-on shoe, if it's a lace-up shoe, and it's very uncomfortable, your feet are still uncomfortable, then the next thing you can do is try to change around the lacing. Because a lot of times the shoes, the lace-up shoes, are not comfortable because the lacing doesn't fit. It's too tight, it doesn't fit in with the shape of your foot, and you need to kind of work with maybe using every other one of the eyelets, or try different ways to lace your shoes, because there's at least a dozen different ways to lace up a shoe, and you can get some comfort that way. And then the next time that you go to buy a shoe, just don't walk out the store with a shoe that does not feel comfortable. And just make up your mind. There are enough shoes in this store. I do not have to go out of here with a shoe that is too small. I do not have to go out of here with a shoe whose toe box is too narrow. I do not have, there are all kinds of things that you can do when you buy shoes that are going to end up giving you a comfortable feel. You need to have a toe box that's big enough so that you have some wiggle room in the toes. And you need to have a toe box that's big enough so that you have a little bit of room at the end of your toes. And you need to have, if you have plantar fasciitis, that goes with the shoes you have. And one of the problems that a reflexologist has, and this is one of the reasons why I have finally decided to write this book, is a reflexologist cannot really diagnose. So a reflexologist cannot look at you and say, well, you have plantar fasciitis. Although you know very well when you're talking to this person that they have plantar fasciitis. So I'm putting it in a book. There are some gel inserts which go into just the heel of the foot, just the heel. Buy those and put those in the foot, in the shoe. And that will change the way you fit in the shoe. It will change the way you walk. It will change the way your feet feel, and it should relieve some pain. And if those heel gel inserts do not offer you relief from plantar fasciitis, then go to a podiatrist and find out how you can deal with the problem. Because plantar fasciitis is indeed a very, very seriously painful problem. And I've had it before. I mean, every step is painful. And it's caused by a shortened muscle in the Achilles heel. So if you can try that, and then if that doesn't work, just go see your podiatrist, because that will definitely help. So there are some things that you need to do to make sure that your shoes fit properly. And I can remember I was in a bead store in Pennsylvania, and it was a beautiful, beautiful bead store. And the woman who owned that bead store was there, and she was sitting behind the counter. This was a woman who was not financially deprived. So she was sitting there and she was telling her employee, she was saying, I just am in such bad shape. I bought a new pair of shoes and I am miserable. The pain is intense. And I wanted to say to the woman, why did you buy them if the pain is that? Why did you do that? If a shoe does not feel comfortable, leave it at the store. Leave it for somebody else whose foot may have a different shape so that that shoe may fit that other person. But you don't have to have this painfully fitting shoe and foot all the time. So when you put on a shoe, make sure that there's room in the toe box. Make sure that the shoe is not a high-heeled, pointed toe shoe. Do not have, either if you are a man or a woman, any shoe that has more than a 2-inch heel in the back where the heel of the shoe is. And there are a lot of athletic shoes out there now that have more than 2 inches. And it's really not good, because it's not good for your toes. It's not good for your balance. It throws your hips off. It throws your knees off. It throws your back off. It throws your neck off. And people have a hard time understanding that when you're wearing the wrong shoes day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, your knees, hips, spine, and neck are going to have problems. And you have brought that by yourself. And I can remember one time I was in the city, and in the city you have to stand out and you have to get a taxi cab. And there was a woman trying to get a taxi cab. And you could tell that her feet were hurting her so desperately. And I couldn't help it. I said, "Don't you have a pair of tennis shoes somewhere that you can put on to get you so that you'll at least arrive at your destination, and then you can put those shoes on in the other destination?" Well, she did not. And she was in a world of hurt. You should not do that. That's not good for you. It's not good for those around you. And you can also fall. And that's even worse, because when you fall and break an ankle or sprain an ankle or break or sprain a knee or whatever, you're costing yourself some money, and you're costing yourself some work time. So that's really important. So one of the things that I also want to talk to you about is your socks and your stockings, because socks are so important now. They are fashion statements. And you hear the advertising. Socks are not cheap. And socks can be, ill-fitting socks can do as much damage to your feet as ill-fitting shoes do. And I see, when I go to work, I see women wearing socks that are too small. I see women wearing socks that are too large. This is just, if you're gonna try to function and get as much out of your life as you want, you're going to have to pay a little bit more attention to the socks. Another thing that we need to talk about is, and this applies to men too, absolutely. It applies to men as well as women. Another thing that we want to talk about is we want to talk about the fact that your hands and feet, when you look at them as the bones of your hands and feet, they are very, very simple, and they are very straightforward, and they are the same. So there's not, when you look at the bones of a hand and the bones of a foot, there's not that much different. So if you really want to have healthy feet and healthy hands, you need to work on building some nimbleness in your foot muscles and your foot joints and tendons. And your feet and hands have about 25% of the bones in your body. So they're extremely important. They are extremely important to your health. They're extremely important to you getting around and moving forward in life. And so that is going to bring an end to this program. And I want to thank you so much for enjoying this program this evening. And if you have any keys, if you have any questions about this new foot care book, that I'm putting out, I offer you an opportunity to contact me so that we can discuss it. And thank you again. This is finally Let's Live in Woodstock, New York.